Hi, my name is Jantas Unat from QA Training. This is part of a series of videos on how to use Excel more efficiently. This particular video relates to working out VAT on a set of values. Let's start by opening an Excel file that we could use to calculate the VAT. The spreadsheet that I'm going to use to demonstrate this VAT calculation has a list of ID numbers, so employee ID numbers, and figures for January to April. I've got the VAT rate located in cell F3, so 20%, and I need to calculate VAT on a range of values from H7 to H16. Now the VAT rate needs to be calculated in column I. So if I place my pointer in cell I7, where I need to calculate the VAT based on the year-to-date total of £671.20. Whenever you're building formulas in Excel, it's important to remember a formula always starts with the equal sign. So I start in cell I7 and I start to type equal. I then locate my VAT rate. The VAT rate is found in F3. So if I select cell F3, where the 20% sits at the moment, and multiply it by the year-to-date total. So the first person's year-to-date total is located in H7. So if I select H7, the value is £671.20. That then should give me 20% of £671. As I press the enter key on my keyboard, that should give me the VAT calculation for that first person's total. Now, in order to get the VAT rate for each of the other individuals within this list, I can copy the formula down using my autofill tool. If I select the answer in I7, at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll find a little box. And as you hover over the little box, your pointer changes into a black plus. That's your fill handle. And if I double click the fill handle, that should give me the VAT calculations for all of the other employees. But actually, as you've noticed, as I double click the fill handle, it didn't calculate the VAT rate effectively. You've got some blanks and you got hash values. If I extend my column to see the actual values that it's calculated, and those values do not make sense. Those values are not representative of 20% of the year-to-date total. Now, to explain what's gone wrong, if I start with cell I7, as you click in cell I7 and if you look at your formula bar, now your formula bar is located just beneath the Microsoft ribbon on the top. And if you're looking at the formula bar, you'll notice it's equal F3 times H7. Perfect. Formula is perfect. But if I take my pointer down to I8 and if I select I8 and if I look at my formula bar again, you'll notice it's equal F4 times H8. Now, F4 times H8 and there's nothing in F4. My 20%, my VAT rate is still sitting in F3. However, Excel is now looking at taking a value from F4 and multiplying it by what's in H8, and that's why it's got no answer in I8. And if I take my pointer down to where you see value in I9, and if I look at my formula bar again, it's F5 times H9. And what's in F5? The word April. So if you're taking the word April and you're trying to multiply it by the value in H9, hence you've got the word value in there because we cannot multiply text with a value. So the default referencing in Excel is called relative referencing. Relative referencing means as you copy a formula from one cell down to the next, the cell reference keeps changing. Like in our case, the F3 is becoming F4, F5, F6. The H7 is becoming H8, H9, H10. And this is what we refer to as relative referencing. And this is what Excel is programmed to do. As you copy a formula down, it's going to change the cell reference by default. However, relative referencing doesn't work in all scenarios. And this is a perfect scenario where relative referencing is not working for us. So what we have to do here to make the calculation work is to use the opposite of relative referencing. And the opposite of relative referencing is absolute cell referencing. Absolute cell referencing is where you keep a cell reference locked or fixed. And in our example, our VAT rate sits in F3. It sits in F3 and doesn't move to a F4, F5, F6. So in order to keep my VAT rate F3, that's the cell I need to lock or keep fixed, or a cell that I need to keep absolute. The common terminology that you'll hear at the office that refer to absolute cell referencing will be locking cells, fixing cells, freezing cells. I even heard anchoring cells. All these concepts refer to absolute cell referencing. And in order to make a cell absolute, what we need to do, first, let's go back to cell I7. If I'm in cell I7, that calculation is perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. But if I'm in I7 and if I go back to my formula bar and locate the cell reference, that's causing us the problem. And the problem cell reference is F3. And if I take my point and I click between the F and the 3, in order to keep this F3, F3, I need to make it absolute. And in order to make it absolute, the easiest way is to use the F4 key on your keyboard. And if I press the function key F4 on my keyboard, that will slot two dollar signs into the cell reference F3. Notice, there's a dollar sign before the column letter F, and there's a dollar sign before the row number 3, which means both the column and the row are now locked. And in order for these to be absolute, you need to lock both the column and the row, which means if I copy the formula down, the 3 cannot become 4, 5, 6. It will always remain 3. Or if I copy the formula cross to the right, the F cannot become GHI. It will remain F. Once I've got the dollar signs in my formula, I press the enter key on the keyboard. Once I press the enter key on the keyboard, I'm ready to fill this down again. So if I go back to I7, I go to my autofill tool and I double click autofill. That should then give me the correct calculations for my VAT. Now, if I go to I7, you'll notice F3 is F3. If I go down to I8, F3 is still F3. So as I scroll down the list of in column I, I'll notice the F3 doesn't change to F4, F5, F6. It remains F3. H7, on the other hand, changes to H8, H9, H10. Now that needed to stay relative because the year-to-date totals are in different cells, starting from H7, then H8, then H9. So hence, no dollar signs for the H7 so that we could keep that relative. If I now wanted to add the VAT to my total to get my VAT, or my total with VAT, in J7, for example, I could then start by using the equal sign again, selecting my first total, which is in H7, and adding it to my VAT, which is in I7. And once I hit enter, that should give me my total with VAT. There's nothing for me to make absolute in this example, so I can go to my J7, my first total with VAT calculation, use the auto fill tool and double click on it to get my total with VAT. This is how you could use Excel to calculate VAT on a set of values. Hope you found the video useful. Look out for additional hints, tips, and techniques within Excel.